You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Welcome to the Body Charge podcast. Today's topic is a method to help dyslexic kids read with competency and enthusiasm. Dyslexia touches as many as 15 to 20% of all learners. As dyslexic kids slip through the cracks, it leads them to believe they are not smart, which affects self-esteem and has many downstream repercussions into adulthood. But is there a better way of learning for them to realize the hidden potential of what this type of brain wiring can provide? My special guest today is the Dyslexia Professor, Russell van Brocklen, who has developed an exceptional program translating structured literacy methods into bite-sized actions for parents to help their children move from struggling to confident readers with a passion and enthusiasm for reading stories. So welcome, Russell. Lovely to have you.
Thanks for having me.
My first question is about dyslexia itself. Can you clarify for the audience what it actually means and why it's different, a different type of brain wiring, why it processes information differently to the average person?
Sure. Let's go over to the science. This is the top book on dyslexia, Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale. That's dyslexia. Do you see how the back part of the gen ed brain has this massive neural activity, but the back part of the dyslexic brain has next to nothing?
Yep.
Now, do you see how the front part of the dyslexic brain is about 2.5 times overactive?
Yes.
Okay. So what we need to do is we need to stop worrying about what's going on back here and move it forward to the front part of the brain, which is about 2.5 times overactive. And according to Yale, this front part of the brain deals with word analysis followed by articulation. So what I would like to do is to take the next 10 minutes, actually tell you how to solve the biggest problems parents contact me with, which is their elementary school kids are writing a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words. And they have no idea what to do. Nobody does. And what'll happen is I'll ask you 2 questions that I give to 7-year-olds, so they're not trick questions. If you answer them exactly, this works. If not, you're going to get incredibly confused, and then you'll know exactly what dyslexia is. Truly understand it. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay. So have you ever met an elementary school kid or a middle school kid who's dyslexic and writing apparently randomly placed misspelled words?
Personally, no. But I do have friends who've had children with that problem, yes.
Do you know any of those children well?
No.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the student I use in these situations. Her name is Sarah. At the time, she was 10 years old. Sarah's favorite thing in the world, her speciality, her area of extreme interest and ability was swimming. She's on the swim team. She jumped in the pool every chance she could get. She was 10 years old in 5th grade, reading and writing at the 2nd grade level, and she loved writing randomly placed misspelled words. At least that's what she told me. She just did it so often. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to fix students like Sarah. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pull out a laptop computer, not an iPad, not an iPhone, and certainly not handwriting. And you're going to type out hero +, what are we talking about? And then Sarah's going to copy that until it's correct. And then what you're going to do is we're going to swap out hero for Sarah. So we got Sarah +, what are we talking about? Then we're going to go to a list of 10 things Sarah really, really likes, and then 10 things she really, really dislikes. First thing she really, really likes is swimming. So we got Sarah +, what are we talking about? We're going to swap out what are we talking about for swimming, and we got Sarah + swimming. See how we got there?
So are you creating a new neural pathway with that kind of repetition and association? The word with the
Yes.
image, the picture, the visual.
Right. What we're doing is we're trying to trigger up here. So we have to start off with word analysis. I'm just kind of giving you how we're getting there, because if you ask a dyslexic or ADD or ADHD kid in their speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed but with little to no organization? So we got to fix that by using writing as a measurable output. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's giving it order where there was no order before. It feels like to them they're random words and they can't put, give them meaning. So by
Yes.
introducing the structure with that repetition and association, they're learning the right order. Is that correct?
Yes. So do you see how we got to Sarah plus sign swimming?
Yep.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you two of the simplest questions you've ever been asked. If you answer these exactly, this will work. If not, you're going to get incredibly confused and have an epiphany in what dyslexia really is. Do you think I can fool you with two of the simplest questions ever?
Well, I don't know. Have a go.
Okay. So we got Sarah plus sign swimming. Here's my question. We got to swap out the plus sign. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Well, like, that's the
Good. You are
plus.
one of the few people that got that correct. Now for the hard part. I need you to put that into I need you just to put that into the three-word sentence. And what's the three-word sentence?
Sarah likes swimming.
But that's not what I asked.
Hmm.
Let's try it again. We got Sarah plus sign swimming. Does Sarah like or dislike swimming?
Sarah likes swimming. No?
Yes, but that's not what I asked.
Hmm.
Do I have you nice and confused now?
Yeah.
Okay, let me show you what's going on. I'm assuming you got a typical brain, which would be this massive activity in the normal brain here.
Yep.
And okay, but Sarah has nothing going on back there, like nothing. So I asked, does Sarah like or dislike swimming? And you got it correct the first time out. You said like. But then when I asked you to put it into the sentence, you did what almost every educated person does. You automatically added the S to make it a proper sentence.
Ah,
Sarah has no clue on how to add the S.
right.
Okay. So do you remember back when you were a young girl in school? And if a teacher had to explain how to do a basic rule, grammar rule, like 4 or 5 times, they got annoyed.
Yep.
You could literally tell Sarah this 1,000 times. Nothing's happening because they've got nothing going on back here. Okay. So what we have to do is use word analysis followed by articulation in order to move it up here where we have 2.5 times the neural activity. So here's how we would go about doing that. The first thing that I would do is say, Sarah, read what you wrote out loud. Sarah likes swimming. I'd say, Sarah, read it out loud again and answer this question. Does that sound generally correct? And she would read it out loud. No, it doesn't. Sarah, fix it. Sarah likes swimming. And then she practices that same thing for the next 9 likes and 10 dislikes. Yes, there's lots of repetition. Can you see how that's a simple form of word analysis?
So, Sarah, just to be clear, Sarah, just in normal verbal language,
Mhm.
would automatically put the S on the end of the likes when she speaks like that normally.
Well, I would ask her to read it out loud and for what she wrote, and she would
Yep.
not have the yes
She
because she
would
doesn't. She just
self-correct because her
she would
brain is listening to her words and realizing that's not quite right.
she would only self-correct once I say, Sarah, read it out loud. Does that sound correct? I'm specifically asking her if
Yep.
what she wrote sounded correct. She would say no, and then at that point, I would say fix it,
Hmm.
and then she would fix it. And we literally have her practice that with 9 likes, the other 9 likes, and 10 dislikes, because the repetition to go from what you would automatically pick up for a dyslexic, the repetition is insane. Parents tell me that all the time. I said, yes, but now you're not at a $75,000 private dyslexic school for 4 to 5 years, or you can do a lot of repetition. We'll do the repetition. Okay.
Yep.
So and notice that I'm talking about things that she really likes and then what she really dislikes. This is highly personal to her.
Yep. So
Okay.
meaningful, in other words, you've got to pick things that are very meaningful to that person.
Exactly.
Yep.
And you see how that's a simple form of word analysis. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now we have to go to articulation. We're going to add because. Give me a simple reason of why a 10-year-old girl likes swimming.
A reason why a 10-year-old girl likes swimming.
Yes.
Um, she feels good, powerful, competent.
Sarah likes swimming because she feels powerful. Okay.
Yep.
Now, we have a huge problem with grammar. So we asked Sarah to read what she wrote out loud. Does it sound generally correct? And we have her keep doing that and fixing it until the whole thing sounds generally correct. Now, those horrendous grammar mistakes, they're gone. You're left with little ones and some medium ones, which teachers are very well trained to deal with. Okay. But now we got a spelling problem. Well, how do we fix that? We tell Sarah to drop a period, and each time she types out the sentence, any spelling mistake, no matter how small, she's got to retype the whole sentence. So she's going to really try to concentrate really, really hard. And she's going to say, I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm not going to make a mistake. And she keeps doing it 3 to 13 times for the sentences.
Yep.
Okay. Do you see how the reason is a simple form of articulation?
Just elaborate on that a bit more.
Okay. So when you say reason one, like reason one and reason two, do you see how the reasons are a simple form of articulation?
Yes.
Okay. So because we're doing word analysis followed by articulation, we're taking it from back here to the overactive front part up here. We got 2.5 times the neural activity. Now, once we do that, once she gets it correct for reason one, then we do the same thing for the other 9 likes and 10 dislikes. Each time, everything has to be correct. Then we keep exactly what she wrote, and we're going to literally retype the entire thing. And then we're going to come up with a second reason connected by the glue word end for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. And then we're going to keep everything we just did for each sentence, and we're going to add a third reason for 10 likes and 10 dislikes. So at the end, Sarah should be able to write a basic 3-reason sentence with decent grammar and correct spelling. All right. But her reading has also improved because if you can write it, you can read it. If you can write it, you can read it. All right. Now, how long does this take? For a 9-year-old, for parents teaching it, most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions 2 to 4 times a week, sometimes never for that week, sometimes more. Even with that, that's like a half an hour to an hour tops a week typically. So a 9-year-old will take about 5 months. A 13-year-old should be done in a couple of weeks. An 18-year-old, you're probably less than a week.
So they need more repetition when they're younger.
Oh, it's just I'm dealing with more horsepower in the brain as they get older. Now,
Yep.
my competition, the Orton Gillingham approach, the older they are, the longer it takes because they literally start them at kindergarten. And if you're in 5th grade, you got to learn K through 4 plus everything you're supposed to learn. If you're in 8th grade, you got to learn K through 7 plus everything you're supposed to learn.
It
Supposed to
sounds
learn
very
plus what you're currently
stressful.
doing. Yes, very. So that's why those schools are 75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
They're
And
really successful. The Windward School has a 98% success rate. The
it's
Gowell School selling it's a 100th anniversary. You send
wow.
your kid there for the entire time, 5th grade through high school, you will love what they do with your child. They'll be brilliant. If you get the scholarship, it's like 60 grand a year.
But learning doesn't work very well when we're under stress. Doesn't matter if
Mhm.
you're neurotypical or not. It's just stress is not conducive to learning. We need to be relaxed and even have fun with it, right?
Yes. So so basically what we're doing is I'm trying to avoid stress by having them focus on how the brain actually works. Okay. Um,
And they get a sense of
you
achievement
they
early,
they s-
quickly.
they see results right away. Okay. They and that's just the basics. The other area that I want you to understand is when we're dealing with dyslexics to reduce their stress. The number one thing I'm going to tell you, what I just gave you is part three of the model. Part one of the model is a student, my most motivated kid ever. Her name is Casey. I never saw this before. I'll never see this again. None of the hundreds of teachers that I taught will ever see this. It's a one-off edge case. Casey was 10 years old when I met her. She's from a lower middle class family in the Midwestern United States. She was reading at the second grade level. She was 10 years old, turned 11 over the summertime. She was really interested in a book called in President Theodore Roosevelt. So I signed her this massive thing, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, all 900 pages of it. This is
Wow.
10th grade to first year college level. Nobody told her this. Nobody suggested it. Casey went up to her room, shut the door for 3 hours a night for the next 6 months, most of the days during the summer days. At the end of that time, Casey, you could flip to this random page, point to any random word, and she would tell you the dictionary definition. Casey jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week. And that is not the point. The point is when I moved to something she hated, we did that for 3 months. I asked her how much did her motivation drop. Most motivated kid ever met. Down 50%. That's the point. Most dyslexic, ADD, and ADHD kids, you step outside the speciality, you're down 75 to 90%. That's why in school interventions typically don't work. Kids aren't interested. They shut down. So during the intervention period, I find a book they're interested in and an audio book. And we get something that's a couple of years ahead of where you want them to be, and they grow into it. Next, if you ask a dyslexic student, if in their speciality, especially ADHD, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed, but with little to no organization? They're going to say yes. So what we have to do is force the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Let me give you an example of that. If you were asked this question, you had access to a university library, you got 3 weeks, nothing else to do, and the papers at the ninth grade level. What effect did Martin Luther King's famous I Have a Dream speech have in the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s? Just with that, could you go in and write a decent paper at the high school level?
Well, if it was a point of interest, if they
No, I
felt,
mean, for you, could
oh,
you, knowing that,
yep,
if you had 3 weeks, a university library to access
yep,
on those instructions, could you just go in and knock out a ninth grade paper?
yeah, probably.
Okay. Here's why. Big picture,
Yep,
eventually go into the details.
yes.
For a dyslexic, that's like grabbing fog.
Uh,
We need to flip it. And this works for ADD as well. We need to flip that to something very specific that eventually goes out. We ask, what personally compelled Martin Luther King to want to give his famous speech? Now we know what to do. It's one book. We go to his biography, find that time period, and it'll tell us. That answer will give us a question, which will give us an answer, which will give us a question, which will give us an answer, which will give us a question. That forces the dyslexic brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Then we do word analysis followed by articulation. And then the dyslexic kid or ADHD kid is taking off.
so you hone in on a particular detail, kind of like seeds, and you build upon that to the bigger
Yes.
picture.
Yes. And that's how the neurodiverse wants to learn.
Yeah, it's kind of
That's the model.
learning to write in reverse, in a sense.
Yes. And the schools will have nothing to do with it because they're used to the back part of the brain and all they have to do, honestly, think back to any part of your education. If you did two things, you set a schedule that was proper, and then you worked really hard. You did well to amazingly well. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's just a matter of scheduling it and doing hard work.
Yeah, so
Dyslexic, you go
they,
ahead.
they teach you they teach you to see the big picture and then how to break it up into smaller pieces to account for your argument. To support your argument, you have to come up with the details as to why you see that big picture. But with the dyslexic brain, it works in reverse. You've got the details that then grow the bigger picture. Yeah, it is a reverse, isn't it?
It is exactly the word reverse because our brains are literally opposite. Okay. So what I want to be very clear with is parents are like, well, if the school's not going to do it, you want us to do it, and we're accountants. We know nothing about this. Let me give you an example of how effective this is. I met Kim. It's in a book I'm currently writing. It'll be out at the end of the summer called "If You Write, You Can Read." It's about Kimberly. She's a very religious homeschooling mom from the state of Ohio with some college. She has 5 kids. She had the state of Ohio a few weeks before we talked test her kids. She spent $700 on it. 4 of her gen ed kids scored brilliantly on reading, brilliantly. But her 10-year-old son was doing horrible. His name is Reed. He was reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. So I worked with Kimberly for half an hour a week for the next 8 months. She worked with Reed for 3 half-hour sessions a week for an hour and a half. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions. Over the summer of 25, Reed's friends came to him and said, we want you in public school to be with us socially. So he, at the beginning of August of 25, he was in a public school getting tested. All right. If Kimberly doubled or even tripled what he did, he would still be placed in special ed, away from his friends, unhappy kid. Didn't happen. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th, writing from the 4th percentile to the 65th, grammar to the 97th. As of April of 2026, Reed is in mainstream classes with his friends, getting mainly A's and B's. Kimberly did what every parent dreams of in under 9 months, part-time. That's how effective this is.
Wow. So these children are quite intelligent, and often that intellect is missed because of this issue with the reversal of. So I remember a few decades ago when my now adult children were children going to school, and some of their friends had dyslexia, and they mixed up the D's and the B's, you know.
Yeah,
So
but
those,
that's a symptom.
yep,
That's a symptom. That's like a stuffy nose, like a cold.
yep,
Cold's in your chest. A stuffy nose is the symptom. If you ask what their speciality is, their area of extreme interest and ability, and you ask, in your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed but with little to no organization? They're
yep,
going to say yes. Okay. Here's the issue with that. We have to fix that part, and then the rest fixes itself.
yep. Yeah, so when I also had a question a bit further back when you made a comment about using the laptop but not handwriting. Why is
Oh,
that different?
absolutely. Okay. So I'll give you an example. When I did my original course that was funded by the New York State Senate, we took super motivated high school juniors and seniors that were incredibly intelligent. And in a public school, they went from middle school writing to the average range of entering graduate students.
Yep,
I took 2 of the top students who went from 8th grade level to about the 70th percentile of entering grad students. Okay. That was when they typed. When I had them handwrite, the evaluator, who was a New York State distinguished professor in psychology, said, I am trying to figure out a way to get this up to, to keep it at the 30th percentile. This really should be at the 6th because they handwrote. So what you're looking at is the connection is very dial up. Normal brains are like 5G. So when you're trying to physically write the letter W instead of just hitting a key, it takes up so much working memory. It just crashes the system. My system doesn't work if you handwrite it. It's
that's so
typing.
interesting. It's so interesting because I remember when in my university years, I had to make notes. Everything was in writing in the lecture. And when I made notes and I wrote, I remembered those things better than when I didn't write them down. It's like my hand was writing that information into my brain. That was the feeling I got from using the hand. So that must be connected with that part of the brain that in a dyslexic isn't connecting the same way.
Yes, and that's what we're talking about. So when you're talking about for the dyslectic, what you need to understand is, remember I said no iPad, no iPhone. It has to be a real keyboard where they're actually hitting keys.
Yep.
Okay. And I literally had a parent say, what, you expect my kid to type for the rest of their life? I said, yes. They said, well, we're not doing that. I said, fine, I'm not the one for you. I recommended the Gowell School. I don't know if they did it, or I said, here's where you can go and find an Orton tutor. It's $150 an hour, a couple of weeks, a couple hours a week for the when the kids in a master's program, they're still with them. That's just how it works. Okay. And most parents are just like, okay, we'll do the typing thing. Some tried the handwriting thing. And I said, if you go back to handwriting, you can go find somebody else to work with because it's hurting your kid. And the
Yep.
kid finally said, Mom, it actually is helping me. I can type. I can't handwrite the thing.
Yep.
And it drives the parents crazy because remember, when we were in school, penmanship was really important. And
Yeah.
now penmanship is out the
Well,
window.
it's forcing a round peg into a square hole or vice versa, isn't it? And
Yes.
that causes excessive stress. I have another question about music. I remember decades ago they came out with a program called Hooked on Phonics, which was very
Mhm.
successful for slow readers. To hear the words and the sentences and the grammar and learn it via musical tones, then access a different part of the brain. It's another type of workaround. Does that also work with dyslexia?
Not really.
No?
Um, so let me kind of give you an example. Um, it could help a little bit, but that's not the root cause. Would you actually like me to show you how to solve reading for dyslexic kids?
Well, we have a few minutes left, so we're heading to the finale. So maybe include that in your summary.
Okay, I'll just make it really quick. What we do is we have the kids type out the word. We're using universal things. We have them type out the word, go to Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, pick out their definition, type out the definition. Then when we go and try to find a very specific universal thing that best matches in their head, we go to the thesaurus, put in the word the one that they think is the best universal thing, and you can do 5 synonyms, 10 synonyms, a whole level, multiple levels, whatever. Let's say you're doing 10. You're going to literally, for each one, type out the word, find your definition, type out the definition. Okay. And you're going to keep doing that. There's a way we teach it online in our online courses where the student does this for 6 to 12 months and then they have a vocabulary of like hundreds of old words. Because here's the key thing when it comes to reading. I'm just going to show you the science again. It's that massive overactive front part of the dyslexic brain.
Yep.
Here's my question. How can you use word analysis if you don't know exactly what the word means?
Well, true.
You
Uh,
can't.
no,
So,
that's
so,
right.
so literally, you have to type out the word and type out the definition. I tell the kids we're doing this in their speciality. We're teaching you from the specific to the general. If you want to learn to read, this is how you do it. I'm teaching you how to write, but if you can write it, you can read it. And if you don't know the word, I can't help you. So I do that with kids who are 10 and 10, 11, 12. Then I keep in contact with some of them. They'll tell me, I got to take my SATs. I got to remember hundreds of words. I said, no, you don't. You did that at 11. So they got a list of words, and I would just say, what's that definition? And they would tell me, and it'd be about 70, 80% correct. So I don't have to study hundreds of words. I said, you did it at 11. And their
There's,
friends are really jealous.
and there's also something about the context when we're reading a sentence. We don't always know, what a fancy word might be, but we can kind of intuit from the context of that sentence what it might mean. Does this dyslexic brain work in the same way via context of the sentence?
That is when we use a book called The Craft of Research to teach our students, which teaches doctoral candidates how to do their dissertation. The first thing, it's context, problem statement, solution. So do you see how those basic sentences were a form of context? We
Yep.
have a much more advanced one. The next thing that I tend to show is how to write really evolved body paragraphs.
Hmm.
Okay. And we show you more advanced form of articulation followed by word analysis. So yes, essentially what I did is I took the craft of research, and most parents, we focus on context, and I combine that with word analysis followed by articulation.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good program that you've evolved from personal grassroots experience, which is
Yes,
always the best way, isn't it?
But we literally have parents teaching this to their kids successfully.
Yep.
And then once the kid gets past the intervention period and they're at grade level, they send them back into school. And there's always a little bit, I don't want to do as much writing yet. Essentially, there's a little pushback from the kids until they know they have to do this. They're not in their speciality all the time anymore. And they're fine.
Yep.
And the parents or the teacher's like, what did you do? And they're like, well, we just taught their brain how it wants to learn, which you won't do because they're the front part of the brain and you teach the back part.
So you're giving them a skill which makes them feel powerful and in control of their environment, their life, that takes the stress away. And that's a big impact on the rest of your life. When you know you can do something, when you've mastered something, it's a great sense of achievement. And it means that they can articulate and express themselves and communicate better with people and not feel lonely, like I'm intelligent, things are going on inside my head, and you don't understand that I know what I know. And so there's a gulf that creates isolation. So you're helping the kids to bridge that gap, helping them to communicate with others better, to express themselves better. And that's excellent for their whole esteem, self-esteem, their health, their mental well-being. There's so many ongoing benefits for the rest of their life. This is fundamental and foundational in a life, isn't it?
Yes, I literally, we work with parents. When I mean the craft of research, my first program, I was funded by the New York State Senate. We brought dyslexic high school kids in public school from middle school level to average and grad students. And the professor said, we don't care. We want the craft of research. And so they literally want me to teach a book designed, it sold over 1 million copies, designed to teach doctoral students to write their dissertation. And they want me to do it in high school. And we start off with context. And that's exactly what I do. All right. And here's one of the key things: parents are scared to death if their kids don't know artificial intelligence, they can't get a job. You know the craft of research, context, unique problem statement, solution. You don't need to know AI. I've had a lot of parents where one of them thinks it's the devil. And I tell them, well, we'll stay away from it when they're 18. They can make their own decisions. And they're like, yeah, we can do that. Then the kids, they don't like it either. They get out of the real into the real world. Remember, I showed them how to do all this stuff in high school, and they turn in work because they have to use it. And they said, what do I do? I said, go do context and come back with problem statement. Then they come back, I hate this. I say, welcome to the grown-up world. Then they do the solution. The boss says, oh, we can use this. This is great. Teach AI to your peers. So they go and do that. And they're trying to go context problem, unique problem statement solution. The kids don't know what that is. So they got to teach them what I taught them in high school, show them how to do how they figure it out with the AI, which they said they just pulled out of the air. They just figured out what works. And they're like, I'm an AI expert and I'm training my peers 3 weeks in. I said, yes, because I
Yep.
taught you properly in high school and you practice it in college.
So where can people find out more about what you do?
The best thing to do is to go to us at skool.com. It's called school, skool.com. Just type in dyslexia classes, and we have a parent course where we literally show you how to do this. And that's the best way to get in contact with us.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. This was a great interview, Russell, and I'm sure a lot of parents will find it very beneficial and and a relief that there's a way through that where they can help their children better.
Yes, thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Cheers. Bye-bye. I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and Magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.